What's up, guys? Mike Thomas, aka the Young Trishula here, and I have kind of an interesting video for you guys today. So, there I was on Reddit. Don't click off the video. I was on Reddit, I was looking around, and I found the Yugioh 101 subreddit. And what this subreddit is it's a place for people to go who might be newer to Yu-Gi-Oh! And, you know, might need help with some questions that they have, that they really aren't sure about. They don't know who to go to because, you know, they're new to the game. They're inexperienced. They're new to the game. So I wanted to go through and read some of these questions, answer them, and, you know, maybe just put it out there and see if it helps other players who might have the same questions. So let's just jump in, and I really hope you guys enjoy it. So the first question we have is from a user asking, is buying 3 of the Shadal structure deck a smart idea, or am I better off just buying singles? If you're ever short on cash, I would always just suggest buying singles. However, with specifically the Shadal structure deck, if you're looking to play Shadals, this was an insanely good structure deck for exactly that. I mean, like, it has pretty much the entire archetype in it, as well as some very good reprints of common meta staples. So, you know, I think that this is probably one of the best values that you can get out of a structure deck. So this one I would actually suggest picking up the 3 structure decks. This is like one of the only structure decks ever that I would just recommend just buying the structure deck instead of just buying singles. So to this user, I would say buy the structure decks. But in general, if you're on a budget, usually singles are the way to go. And sealed product is a lot better if you just want to get a lot of cards and you don't care really what you're getting. The next question I found is, what is card advantage and how do I utilize it in games? This is a really good question for new players, because this was something that I didn't really understand and Yukio taught me, which I think is just incredible for, you know, like gaming, card games in general. I think this is something that you have to learn. And I mean, it made a lot of sense to me, you know, when I got into college and, you know, I studied economics, and I was like, whoa, this is just card advantage. Like, I mean, it all came full circle for me. So I like this question a lot. So what card advantage is it is the net difference of cards between yourself and your opponent. Both players begin the game with 5 cards in their starting hand. So if I were to activate a card like Magical Meltdown and add Alistair to my hand, I would no longer have 5 cards. I would have 5 cards in my hand, being the 4 that I started with, plus an Alistair, plus a Magical Meltdown on the field. So I would have received a net benefit of +1 cards, because we both started at a net difference of 0. We both had 5 cards. So this gives me an advantage of 1 card over my opponent. And why this is important and how it's useful to you as a player is comparing card advantage is one really effective method at evaluating both cards and the game state. So players that have higher card advantage are typically seen as being in a more winning position than their opponent, because they have greater resources than their opponent. If I have 10 cards and you have 5, I have 5 more resources to work with than you do, which already puts me in a better position. And so from that, you can infer that cards that generate card advantage, that give you additional cards without, you know, having to give themselves up, would be considered good. So that's kind of how you can think of card advantage, just as a brief overview. The next one I saw that I wanted to point out is, does Slifer the Sky Dragon's effect work on Link monsters? Yes, it does. Slifer, yes, it does. The next question that I want to go over is another good question, which is, does Miscellaneous effect activate in graveyard? And as a general rule, how can I tell if a card activates in the graveyard? So Miscellaneous has 2 effects, one of which does activate in the graveyard and one of which activates in the hand. Now, I'm going to assume that they're talking about the first effect of Miscellaneous, because this is where some confusion might be. We have all read Miscellaneous, I hope, right? You've read Misc, right? If not, here's a picture. So the first effect is to discard to make dinosaurs unaffected. Now, this effect activates in the hand, and the reason that it activates in the hand is because, well, I mean, other than that's where you activate the card. The way that you can kind of think about it is ask yourself, where did the card start when I activated that effect, or before I activated that effect? So Miscellaneous Source started in your hand before you sent it to the graveyard, so therefore it activates in the hand and not in the graveyard. Now, the second effect of Miscellaneous Source also moves its location, so it's another good example, which is it activates in the graveyard because it starts in the graveyard. Before you activate the effect, Miscellaneous is in the graveyard. So when you go to activate that effect, you move it from the graveyard somewhere else, meaning it does activate and resolve in the graveyard. So another good question, just if you're struggling with that, if you're never sure where a card activates or if it resolves, because cards resolve where they activate, it activates wherever it was where it started. So that's one way that you can think about it, if that helps you. The next quick question I found was Infinite Impermanence. The text on the card reads, card effects in this column are negated. Does this refer to the Infinite Impermanence column or the column of the monster that was negated? It refers to the effect of Infinite Impermanence. So the column that Infinite Impermanence is the column that is negated. So that's actually surprisingly a good question. I didn't really think about this, but the way it is worded, you could read that either way. So good question. Just to confirm, it is the column that Infinite Impermanence is activated in. Now, here's another good question that I found. That is a question effectively about chain links, which are one of the most complicated things for a new player to learn in Yu-Gi-Oh! Once you've learned it, it never feels complicated again, but for a lot of people, it's very daunting. So let's go over this question. It is a question about Fiendish Chain, which is, funnily enough, the card that also taught me chain links all the way back in 2013. So, for example, you have Fiendish Chain, and you're activating it on the summon of Magician's Rod. Will Magician's Rod effect still activate and resolve because of when this card is normal summon, you can add one spell trap to your deck that lists Dark Magician in its text? So the answer to this question is no, Magician's Rod will not resolve because the effect of Magician's Rod starts a chain link. So on summon, when summoned, you are going to summon Magician's Rod, and on that summon, it starts a chain to attempt to search a spell or trap card. And that gives your opponent an opportunity to respond with any card effect that is spell speed 2 or higher, or i.e. trap cards. So Fiendish Chain, being a trap card, can be responded to. So how the chain would work would be Chain Link 1 is Magician's Rod to attempt to search. Chain Link 2 is Fiendish Chain targeting the Magician's Rod. Given that there are no other cards activated in this chain, Fiendish Chain will resolve first because chains resolve backward. So the Fiendish Chain will resolve, negating the effects of Magician's Rod. Magician's Rod, although it's already activated, will resolve without effect because it is now negated. So that is how the chain link would work. Hopefully that explanation is pretty straightforward. If it's not, you can leave me a comment and I will try to respond on this video as best I can, ask and answer any questions you have, because I know chain links are kind of one of the first big barriers to entry when it comes to playing this game. So for the next quick question, we have, what is the best online dueling site? I don't need to read any further. The answer is Dueling Book. The answer is Dueling Book. It is by far the most in-depth, accurate, and just overall, it is overall the most authentic Yu-Gi-Oh experience that you can get anywhere online ever. Like, I mean, it's perfect at simulating what it's like to sit down across from somebody and play Yu-Gi-Oh. Of course, this comes with the caveat that you actually have to know how to play Yu-Gi-Oh to utilize this powerful tool perfectly. And so if you're struggling with Yu-Gi-Oh, if you don't know how to play the game properly, like you don't know all the rulings, you don't know stuff like that, then there are other options like automatic simulators such as EDO Pro. or Yu-Gi-Oh! Omega. Those are popular ones. I'm not too familiar with them personally, so I can't really advise you too well on them because I play the game manually. But Dueling Book is by far the best simulator that you can ever ask for if you want that authentic Yu-Gi-Oh! Experience. If you do not, and you do not want to go through the process of learning how to set up and install EDO Pro or Yu-Gi-Oh! Omega on your computer, we are literally like a month or two away from Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel, which is going to completely change how this game works in the online space, and I can't be more excited about it. So that's definitely something that you can look forward to as well. So the next question we have is another good question. It's just a very open-ended question. Deck building advice. Hello all. After seeing some of the new cards from Dimension Force, I want to go through and rebuild my deck for the new set. I feel that my deck building can be improved quite a bit. Any tips for how to get the most out of the deck building process? Thanks. So this is a very open-ended question, and I'm going to try to answer it as best as I can in a general sense, not even about Pendulum, which is what they're asking about. But in general, I think when it comes to Yu-Gi-Oh, you want to focus your deck around a singular core idea or win condition, a singular concept that you're building towards, and that's how you plan on winning the game every time you sit down to play Yu-Gi-Oh. And this could be anything from, like drawing all 5 pieces of Exodia to reducing your opponent's life points to 0 with powerful monsters such as Access Code Talker. From there, you're going to want to optimize and refine this strategy. So it's not enough to just have the strategy, and just say, oh, this is my win con. You need to optimize your strategy and make it consistent. And what I mean by that is that if you were to pick any 5 cards in your deck and just draw a random hand of any 5 cards, you can say to yourself reasonably that you are going to achieve that win condition, or at least you have a very good chance of getting to that win condition with minimal effort in basically every single hand in your deck. So almost every 5 card combination of cards in your deck should be theoretically able to get you to whatever that singular core win condition is. And once you have refined that part of your deck, that's what we would call the skeleton or the core of your deck. From there, you would go about the process of, identifying specific weaknesses or specific scenarios that your deck might encounter and then maybe struggle with. And then go about including cards to address those issues, right? So Nightmare Phoenix is a good example of an extra deck monster that can help with the opponent's set, spell, and trap cards. Nightmare Phoenix is what I would call a toolbox monster or a utility monster. You can think of your extra deck as just like a toolbox of useful cards that you would want access to at any given point during the game. And Nightmare Phoenix is a good example of that because the potential problem is my opponent activated a spell or trap card that I cannot beat. Say maybe it's Imperial Order, for example, and you're playing Sky Striker. So you might want to include something like Nightmare Phoenix in order to have a way to deal with that, for example. And then if it comes to cards in your main deck that address these situations, we would similarly call these defensive or utility cards, and they are going to vary from deck to deck. I mean, that's true of extra deck cards, a little bit less so since, there's only so many good extra deck staples, but these defensive utility cards, there's a lot of them that you could be playing. So it's very common amongst new players to want to include a lot of these utility cards for very niche situations. So I would say that a good rule of thumb is to put between 9 and 15 of these cards in your deck. 9 is about where I usually go. 15 is more on the higher end if you're playing a really, really defensive deck that might struggle against a lot of strategies. But 9 to 15 is usually the range that you're gonna want for defensive cards. And these cards are cards that usually are going to address specifically common meta threats, because, you know, if they're in your main deck, you want it to be very flexible, very versatile, or, you know, specific weaknesses. So, like, if you're playing a deck that specifically loses to, I don't know, Shadal, maybe you're going to play cards that specifically help you against Shadal. But another thing to remember about this is, if you're a new player, remember that you have a side deck. I see a lot of new players just not use their side deck correctly at all, or even at all. So, you know, you have the side deck there for those niche scenarios. So, you know, like, your instinct might be right to include cards to help you beat some, like, really obscure niche scenario, but you don't need to include those cards in your main deck. You can put those in your side deck. Like, your side deck's there. Use it. But if that explanation is a little bit too generic, or, you know, maybe you'd like more advice or more help with the deck building process, I do offer one-on-one deck building advice and coaching on Metafy. You can check out the description of this video. There will be a link to my Metafy page, and you can always book with me. I'm free all the time, so and, you know, I'm very, very accommodating with scheduling, so go check that out if that's something that you might be interested in. Now here's one that that I thought was kind of interesting, kind of funny, because, you know, like, as a frequent Dueling Book player, we joke about this, but is hacking on Dueling Book a common thing? Hi everyone, I'm pretty new to Dueling Book, and today I played someone with the most insane luck. For instance, they used Delinquent Duo twice in GOAT format. They picked the absolute best card in my hand both times. First time, they picked the only card that prevented a loss out of 6. Second time, they picked the only card that would give me a chance of winning out of 5. Neither time did my opponent roll a dice. They just instantly picked a card. There are instances of luck that I won't speak on for the sake of brevity, but I am just curious if there's any instances of cheating on Dueling Book before. The whole duel was really fishy to me. Edit. Is it BM to ask my opponent to roll a die in those situations just to verify it is RNG? Now, no, people do not hack on Dueling Book. It's a joke. Like, you can, it's like, oh, we're gonna inspect element, change the cards in our hand. Haha, we're a hacker man. Da 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 da. No. This is just a case of really unfortunate RNG for this player, which does happen. I mean, this is a card game. It is based centrally around luck, especially at a very high level. But if you do not feel like your opponent is not using a proper method of RNG, like you feel that something is fishy, like you just have this gut feeling, you can always ask your opponent to roll a dice. You can say, hey, I'm not cool with that method of selection. Can we do a different one? You can say that. Keep in mind, though, if you refuse and you ask your opponent to change the method of selecting a card after they've already gone about selecting a card, say like they've sniped a card in your hand, that's the best card in your hand, you ask them to like roll a dice instead, for you can equally be seen as attempting to cheat, trying to get them to change the card they selected by like, oh no, I want you to roll a dice. Oh no, I want you to play a game of euchre to decide which card you're gonna pick. Like, just keep that in mind. So you actually might get in trouble for cheating if you do that. But you know, you always have the right to, you know, say, hey, I would prefer it if you did it this way. And, you know, even if they say, well, this is the card I'm picking, you can just say in the future, like the next time you go to pick a card, please use a different method of selection. That I would be more comfortable with. That's always something that you can make a request of your opponent, even in IRL play. So another shorter question we have is, what are deck masters? Saw somebody post about this. What do they refer to? Deck masters are a game mechanic in the upcoming TCG alternative format, Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck Masters. I have a couple videos on my channel talking about some potentially powerful deck masters, and if you'd like to see this format in action, I have a series playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck Masters on Stevie Blunder's channel, where I will put the link to his channel in the description. We've recorded quite a few episodes. A few of them are uploaded already. I'm not sure when the other ones are gonna go up. It's usually like one episode a week, but it's a pretty good series. It's a lot of fun. Like it's a cool alternate way to play Yu-Gi-Oh. Definitely worth checking out. And just to finish off this episode, I wanted to talk about one post that I saw that bothered me a little bit. Just because I've encountered this kind of player before, and I think it in some ways leads to an unhealthy community. And just to read the post, my friend doesn't feel special playing Yu-Gi-Oh! I brought my friends to my locals. They haven't played in a couple years, and were reminiscing how awesome Dragon Ruler Tier 0 format was. The main reason they enjoyed the format was because when they went to locals, 90% of people were all playing Dragon Rulers. Meanwhile, they were the odd guys out, playing a strange different deck from everyone else. So when they returned to Yu-Gi-Oh! And joined my locals and played against a variety of decks, pretty much everyone at my locals is playing something different with, Hero, Zodiac, Striker, Eldritch, Virtual World, Thunder Dragon, Pendulum, Grenmaju, Flunderies, Dinosaur, Drytron, Prank Kid, Zombie Shitall, etc. After a while, though, my buddies told me they felt uncomfortable playing because it doesn't feel like their decks are special or weird anymore due to everybody playing different decks. What am I supposed to do? Now, as I mentioned before, this is something I've encountered in Yu-Gi-Oh! Far too often. I get the desire and the fun in winning with a unique, groundbreaking deck that that's entirely your own creation. That's one of the best feelings you can have playing a card game. But not having fun because you are not the only person in the room with a unique deck is really just self-centered and childish. But not only that, but it's also hypocritical too, right? Like, you want to have fun playing a unique deck, but no one else is allowed to? That to me is just not right. So while you cannot, nor should you try to force your friends to have fun with the Yu-Gi-Oh! Hobby, or any hobby for that matter, you should equally not let their apparent main character syndrome prevent you from enjoying the game yourself. My advice to this OP would be to just find a different hobby to enjoy with your friends if Yu-Gi-Oh! Is not their cup of tea. And in that vein, if the OP wants friends in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Community, just find people with healthier attitudes about the game. Like, they certainly exist. Clearly their locals is probably full of it, with people playing a ton of different decks. And that's something that people complain about far too much in Yu-Gi-Oh! In my mind, is that people play too many similar decks. So I think really at the end of the day, play what you want to play, right? Like, just have fun. This is a hobby, this is a game. Just do whatever you want to do, have fun. Like, don't let other people tell you how to play the game, and don't get upset about how other people enjoy the game. It's a game. Enjoy it. Anyway, guys, that is it for this video. Hopefully this is a useful video for some of you guys out there. If you'd like to see more content like this, drop a comment down below, let me know, or just support the video with a like. Consider subscribing. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers by the end of March, and I will see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.